Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 47 of the Whitey and Wills Sports Show. Today is Tuesday, October 4th. We're getting off our Sunday schedule a little bit, but we did that because we have got a guest that we have been trying to get on here for a while, and this evening worked well. And so Bob Walls is live in the Mike Wilson studio.
Very impressive.
Bob,
Yeah, it is.
thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Bob, of course, a former Effingham football player of some esteem. You may remember a certain and correct me if I get anything wrong, because this is a little before my time, but I think people in the area will remember a certain 1971 football team that went 9-0 in the regular season, and Bob was the quarterback on that team. Up until very recently, Bob was the quarterback with the most touchdown passes in Effingham school history. That one went down to Landon Wolf a few years back, but there's probably been others that you held previously too. I don't know off the top of my head, but
the only other one that would have been was the
Cleanest uniform.
no, not that. That was a good one.
I know that's
The percentage of passes completed. I had that right.
Gotcha. So anyway, Mike Wilson he's been working on you for a while to try to get you to come on here and talk about the good old days of your time as the Effingham High School quarterback, and just the teams that kind of came about in that time period. There were some pretty good groups that came through, and people like to reminisce about that stuff. Mike certainly toward the top of that list. So here you are, and we appreciate you coming on.
We actually mentioned the 1971, the fall of 1971 team. That was my senior year.
Yes.
The previous year, we were also undefeated that year too. So
Okay.
2 straight years we went undefeated. And I would tell you that junior team, when I was a junior in 1970, a lot of people will tell you that was probably the best team that's ever been at the high school. We had some real horses there.
Talk about it. Like,
and you guys didn't have playoffs.
No.
We go to the semifinals just like they did 2 years ago. And what I know, and from seeing things and talking about things, and talking to my dad, kind of the historian, he said, no, you couldn't have played.
No, your dad is one that will tell you that was the best team ever at the high school. We had an average offensive line of around 275 to 280 pounds. And that was really big for back then. That was big for some small colleges. And we, for example, we outscored our opponents 350 to 43 that year. And we ended up being ranked third in the state of mid-sized schools. And then the following year, when I was a senior, we outscored teams 276 to 78. So those were 2 really, really good teams with a lot of good football players.
Now, Bob Duvall a year older than you?
Bobby is 1 year younger than me.
Oh, you're younger than you. So you had him both years.
I had him really. He also played when he was a sophomore quite a bit.
Oh, there you go.
Bobby would alternate with a guy named Mike Edson and would bring in plays. They would just alternate.
Yeah.
So as a sophomore, Bobby was pretty effective.
And who was the all-time leading rusher until Terrence Hill broke that record just
be Bobby Duvall
a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of those records that were on the books for decades that have just recently fallen, and I think that speaks to how good the teams of your era were, because I mean, it's not like Effingham hasn't had any good football teams in the ensuing 40, 50 years, but it's just that they finally, records made to be broken, of course, but records that stand for a long time, shows how impressive they are.
And that's one thing I like about this new coach. I think he recognizes where his strengths are at. And 2 or 3 years ago, this Terrence Hill, a running back, they ran him a lot. 2 or 3 years ago, they passed a lot. They had some great receivers. And he just, to me, has a knack of finding out where his strengths are at.
He matches his approach to his personnel, not forcing his personnel into his approach. And yeah, they have been successful. We've had Coach Hefner on. We had him on the beginning of right before the season started. And, you know, it's a tribute because I think he tries to keep the legacy, you know, a little bit about what's going on. And, you know, I mean, now I do have one question for you.
Sure.
How many more yards would you have if your home turf was what they have now? Because we played on dirt.
We played in mud.
Yes.
We played in mud. Can't really answer that, but I can tell you this. I can tell you this, that in most games, I was basically a 2-year quarterback. And by the middle of the third quarter, I was out. I was out. I very seldom did I take a snap in the fourth.
Who was your backup?
Fish.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you guys were creaming people, like you mentioned. You know the
And when your Coach Clausen was good about not pouring it on too bad, when you hit a certain point, the starters were out, and that's the way it should be.
was there.
Although my senior year, and I tell people this not often, but we played Taylorville. Both teams were undefeated. It was our last game, my last game at Effingham High School. And it was supposed to be a good game. Both teams undefeated. Well, we were up 30-0 at halftime. And I didn't take a snap in the second half. And that, you know,
Had
I
that been,
almost went to coach and said, Coach, come on, one more time.
I was gonna say, was there any team that you played that he was maybe willing to pour it on to just a little bit more?
I don't think so. That
No.
was just not that was not the kind of man that he was.
now in the playoffs my senior year, if we could have, you know, hung a couple more on Litchfield, he would have there, because that was the whole getting rid of the Mid-State Conference, and they were the people who started that whole movement. So yes, he would have hung a couple extra scores on Litchfield if he could have that night. But they were good, and we were in for a battle to get that win.
So tell me about your teams a little bit. The teams you quarterbacked. You talked about the big offensive line, but obviously that could tailor itself to running the football real well. But also you threw a lot of touchdown passes. So what did you guys what did you guys do?
I was blessed with some great receivers. In 1970, it's my junior year, a guy named Mike Tegler was a first-string All-Stater that year. And the other guy on the other end was 6'4", and he was Rick Ross. But what Mike Tegler could do is, once he got open, which he got crazy open. I mean, he would get open like nobody else. And then after he caught the ball was when the magic started. He was so good, so fast. I mean, he not only was a first-string All-Stater, but he had 10 interceptions that year playing safety.
Mm-hmm.
Just a great football player. Probably had 2 or 3 kickoff returns. I mean, he just was an amazing football player.
And great hands.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
I was always told he caught, I mean, my dad says he's never seen a receiver who could catch the, I mean, because when he said Mike caught everything that was near him.
He did. But he was so wide open, it was easy to get the ball to him. You know, he was just that good.
Now he would have had an interception record that recently fell, right? I feel like that's one that went down.
I think Tim Stewart may have had that.
Is that right? That does sound correct.
Because our group has the record for a season still
Mhm.
with 22. I got one of them, by the way, just wanted to bring that up. So my name's
Was it
not
tipped?
listed in the book as our
Was it
class.
tipped?
Oh, no.
No.
That was, no.
You're always quick like a cat.
Senior night against Pana, and I paid the price for that one. They stuck me in the ground like a golf piece.
What is it about football, guys? I didn't get to play football. Okay, I went to Neoga. We don't have football, but
Why do you got
you guys can talk about games that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago, and you remember a lot of details. And I feel like that is specifically a football guy thing. Is that just because you don't play that many games and it just means that much to you, those chances you get to go out and compete?
Yeah, I think so. There was nothing like Friday nights.
Oh, no.
You know, Friday nights were so much fun. As far as I'm concerned, as far as a team sport, you can't beat football. The friendships you make over the years. And then, you know, I still see some of these guys like Gary Reed, who was a great offensive tackle in 1970. see guys like him. I see Phil Logston, who was a 290-pound offensive pulling tackle. You just don't, you just spend all that time with them during the fall, and you just don't forget those memories.
Well, and it's you develop a brotherhood. I mean, that's always kind of like a cliche, but it is true. And I think it's because the time you spend together, you know, you're pounding on each other half the practice. I mean, you really are. And then, you know, you help each other. I still remember, you know, the quote God Squad running, you know, and Ed Dausenbruck and Kevin Goshenauer, the linebackers, they tried to kill me every practice, but they'd laugh and pull me up, you know, grab me and pull me up, pat me on the back. And you get close. And it's strange, but I think that's really what it is. It's a different camaraderie than, you know, I played baseball, played basketball. Bob, you played baseball and basketball. It's just a different camaraderie as a team.
You've also got, you know, 30, 35 teammates.
And you have to trust them all.
Oh, yeah.
You know, basketball, you can have 5, 6 kids play, and a lot of kids that don't play. But in football, you got a lot of kids having to play, and they all have a job every time something happens.
Well, especially if you're quarterback, some of those guys are responsible for making sure you don't get killed out there.
Well, that was, again, I had amazing offensive lines both years. I don't know that I got sacked maybe once or twice in 1970 and maybe 4 times in the following year. They were just that good.
Now, you've been, my understanding is a pretty regular attendee at the games through the years since then. Tell me a little bit about how high school football has evolved in that amount of time. I mean, do you consider it recognizable to when you played, or is it a lot different, or is it just a little different? What do you think?
A lot of people won't agree with me on this, but I don't see a lot of difference.
Okay.
I think there are more bigger and stronger and faster kids now than there were back then.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean there weren't a certain few that were big and strong. You know, they didn't lift weights. They threw bales of hay, you know. There was no weightlifting back when I was in school.
No.
I don't know about you, Mike.
We just were starting it, but it wasn't ever, you know. Eddie Gravenhorst was lifting a lot in high school, but that was about it.
We had some big, strong kids that were fast. you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby Duvall he's the guy that held the record for a lot of years, and he wasn't only a great football player, but he was also the best sprinter the school had in track. He held the record there for a while.
So then when you're watching a game from the stands, then I guess like you see what's happening out on the field, and you still have a pretty good understanding of what the X's and O's are behind it too. Then I guess, has that changed very much, you know, as far as what like coaches are trying to do? Or
I think I got a pretty good idea what they're trying to do. I mean, there seems to be a lot of repeat plays now where when I was in school, we seem to have maybe a bigger array of different plays. Like, for example, our high school team, they don't have a screenplay that I know. And that's one of the most effective plays you can have in football. That's what will stop the defensive line from putting such a hard rush. Even a draw play. You don't see draw plays.
No, you don't see it. Really draws or screens.
How effective. And some teams do it. Mount Zion did it the other night and was pretty effective with it. We did stop at one time, but it's a great play to stop that defensive line from crashing.
Yeah.
And we had multiples. I mean, we had a lot of different screens.
All kinds of different.
It was with Jack, you had to think a little bit because there was a lot of stuff.
Plus he also would throw on first down.
Yeah.
Which at the high school, and they haven't seen this for years, where they throw on first down very often, except for maybe when Landon Wolf was quarterback.
But and the thing about Jack, and you know, being a backup for 2 years, my job was to take the plays from Jack, tell Sam Rippleman, because Sam was on the sideline, Dustin, and I would give Sam the play, and then he'd write it down, so he had his running script. And then I learned how Jack would, you know, I knew what was coming next, maybe half the time. All right, I know what Jack's getting ready to do here.
Mhm.
You know, bang, and I'd go down. Okay, here's what we're doing. You know, and that was the thing I think impressed me the most about him. And you know, I know we had him his last year, my senior year, and people were, you know, oh, he's too old, he's forgetful, you know, he calls Rick Mansfield Mike Mansfield, you know, he's got all but you know what? No, you know, when it was kickoff, you talk about being in charge.
He was
He was in charge of the whole
he was intense.
game. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I thought he got his leg broke one time on the sideline at Vandalia. I mean, he got dumped and he jumped up like nothing hit him.
Coach was all business. I mean, he was after a game, he was complimentary, but there wasn't a lot of it. You know, he would pat you on the back and say, "Nice game," or he might even tell you, "Hey, we need to talk about something that happened. We'll talk to you on Monday about it or on Tuesday." But most of the time, he was very gracious. Of course, we were winning, so that makes a difference.
Well, and he would have fun with us in practice. He'd joke around in practice, which most people didn't realize. I mean, he wasn't afraid to get, you know, because if Jack started cracking you up, guys were like, wait a minute, and you know.
Well, every once in a while, he would put for an extra point rather than kicking, he would put 290-pound lineman at fullback and let them try to take it over.
Yeah.
And it was usually successful.
It was pre-fridge days, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
He used to complain that he'd give me grief that I was too slow on a handoff to the fullback. So
You probably
one
were.
time in practice, he started calling it 831 Wilson because you're not getting there. Got down, he said. So you just turn and you take it through the one home.
That's all you can do. If you miss the handoff, you got to go through the whole.
It was amazing. I got a lot quicker after that because I didn't like that. That was a beating.
So Bob, did you consider yourself more of a and forgive me for not knowing, but were you more of a big arm quarterback or were you more of a finesse quarterback, would you say?
I mean, I think I could go either way. I could throw a ball in game conditions. I could throw a ball 50 yards.
Yeah.
We had certain plays that we didn't run often, but we had certain plays that would take it up the field, you know, maybe have to throw it 40, 45, 50 yards. But I would say more than not, we were down and out type stuff, quick slants across the middle, maybe a button hook pass or something like that. But we threw it downfield some, just not as much as we did the short stuff.
Sure.
And
Yep.
most of the time that was on first down. We would
Right. And you do some of it out of play action because you had such a dominant running game. You would get you know, you would create the windows you needed because of the defense's fear of what was coming at them on the ground.
That's a good point. You don't see a lot of play action with this current high school team. That stuff will freeze a linebacker, or it'll have an effect on what a defensive back does.
It worked for Effingham once Friday night. You know, that touchdown pass to the tight end, that was a play action play. And next thing you know, Connor Thompson's running downfield all by his lonesome. Only time
It does work. It does work.
I mean, it worked. And you were talking about screen passes. I mean, Mount Zion ran one. It was just, I mean, he caught it at the line of scrimmage. Athletic kid. I mean, the Trimble kid ran from one side of the field to the other and then up the field and just made like 4 or 5 people miss by the time it was all said and done.
Is that number 11?
Yes.
He was good. He was
He's
very
an
good.
athlete, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yep. Yeah,
A little bit of Tristan Duncan.
yeah.
Tristan.
There's a good
Yeah,
receiver.
absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing, you know, you were at the Mount Zion game and we always break down these games, and Effingham lost one. I mean, it was a tough game. Went to overtime. They lost 39-36. They kicked a field goal on their opening possession, and then Mount Zion scored a touchdown to win it. I just felt like that Mount Zion team, you could go overtimes all night long. You might not be able to keep that group of receivers out of the end zone.
Good point. I mean, first of all, the quarterback was very, very good.
Uh-huh.
A nice tight pass. And he had 2 or 3 really good receivers. I think that number 8 was just a freshman.
That's true. Yep.
Which is impressive.
Yep. They had a freshman. They had they had a couple of younger receivers. In fact, number 12, and I should know their names off the top of my head, but he was a young kid too. I think was it McAtee? I think it seems like he was a younger guy too. He caught a
Not like they had a
couple.
big kid they threw to an Anderson around the end zone.
JC Anderson was his name, and he was tall.
But Effingham had a rough time that whole game with their passing game.
Yeah, it was.
We struggled with that.
Well, and that's the thing is that seeing all the Effingham games this year and really seeing all their games every year, they don't often run into a team that is going to put 5 receivers out there at one time. You know, in fact, and sometimes you could tell that they just didn't know what to do with it, because I remember there was one play where they lined 4 receivers up on one side of the line of scrimmage. And then they just ran the ball up the middle and got 7 or 8 yards out of it, because Effingham just was a little crossed up, didn't know exactly, how to deal with it. And they knew that there were big threats at that position, so they had to keep an eye on them. But yeah, I don't know. They come at you with some sets that you're not used to seeing, especially when a pretty down Taylorville team and Mattoon and Charleston were the last 3 opponents. You just haven't been challenged that way in a while. Right. That's what worries me a little bit about Mater Dei coming up, is even though they seem to be so this year, they like to throw the ball generally. And so, it'll be interesting to see how Effingham deals with their passing attack in a couple of weeks.
What does Lincoln have?
I'm not.
They spanked Mattoon, didn't they?
Mattoon. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think Lincoln's going to be a handful. I do, but got to beat them at this point. Got no choice but to beat them if you want to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, you got to win 2 or 3 in Highlands.
That's a
tough
must.
one. That's a tough one to end the year on.
But getting back to the Mount Zion game a little bit, Bob, Effingham had a stretch there. They fell behind, but then scored those 2 really quick touchdowns there in the first half. And you felt like the momentum swung in their direction. And, we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but unfortunately, they take that 4-point lead, and the onside kick didn't work. A penalty on top of it. And Mount Zion really, from that point on, sort of dictated things. Effingham got another lead, but the Mount Zion was just scoring kind of at will from that point on. It was that was a big point in the game. But then you brought up another point in the game that was pretty important. When the Hearts were
on the south end.
Yep. When they were knocking on the door.
Was that in the first half or the second half? I'm trying to remember when that was. That may have been in the first half. I'm not sure, but to me, the key play in the game was the offsides.
Yes.
Down on the south end with a 4th and 1 when we were getting 2 and 3 yards on a quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
And then we ended up with 3 points instead of 7. To me, that's when things turned.
That was early in the second half. That was in the third quarter.
Okay.
Hearts were ahead 14-13. Yeah, they're knocking on the door. Mount Zion gets called for a penalty that makes it 4th, and it was a half the distance to the goal line because of how close they were. And it got you within inches of a first down. They were trying to run a sneak, got called for illegal motion, and then got pushed back and ended up settling for the field goal. Yeah, a touchdown there would have, instead of 17-13, that makes it you probably
24-13.
Well, no, 21-13.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you have to field
the
goal.
extra point.
Yep, 21-13.
But Mount Zion was good. I mean, it's not that it's not a bad loss. It's just you had your chances to win it too, I think.
We needed to win that game.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about 2 of the next 3 games, and they may not even get in with a 5-4 record. I don't know if every team gets
you
in.
don't know. Then you rely on the points, and you're not exactly piling up points this year. You're getting
First 2 games they had
Bahamas points and St. Teresa's points and Highlands points. You got 3 opponents who are piling up points for you, but no one else is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not getting a lot of help from the last 3 teams you just played. That's for sure. Charleston, Mattoon, Taylorville.
They're not getting any out of conference wins.
Nope. But tell me, Bob, and listen, I already know the answer to this because of what you and Mike were talking about before we started recording. But being a football player, a competitive guy, I assume you find other things to do in your adult life to satisfy those competitive urges. And what is it for you?
Well, let me just say, there's nothing satisfies the competitive urges like football and baseball did for me.
Okay.
Those two sports, I still love to watch baseball. I don't watch a lot of football, but I may start with Illinois and what they're doing. I watch high school ball. That's about it. But no, I play some golf. Mike knows that. We've been on some Ryder Cup teams.
Yeah, I stole that back.
Oh, nice.
The original Ryder Cup. Yeah. We used to have a alumni Ryder Cup, Effingham versus St. Anthony at the country club.
Yeah.
And on paper, they kept St. Anthony was supposed to win every year, but we won more than they did. And the very first one, Mr. Walls has to make a putt to win it, or we lose. And he makes it.
You call that the putt?
The putt. We just called it the putt because it wasn't a tap in. It was 15 foot, probably. Little side hill, little uphill side hill, and his
My one moment in the sun when it comes to golf.
his idol and mentor Mike Etter was sending vibes out so he would make the putt, and so yeah.
Careful of that idol.
But yeah.
I'm a 2 handicap, 68 years old. I'm still a 2 handicap, and I've shot my age a couple times.
Pretty
And
impressive.
For 18 holes. I didn't know if you like stopped after 15 and said I'm done. I'm at 68. Okay.
I've got a 65 and a 64 in there that I've shot. So
now I was always told a rumor you once shot a 72 without a par. Jim Huntington told me that.
That's not true.
That's not true.
I had 1 par on 18.
Oh, so you did par 1 hole.
I had 9 birdies.
Okay. That's Huntington. See, he didn't remember things very well.
Yeah. Jim, he gets all excited. He calls me the Blade too, and that's not true anymore.
I know. Sure. Well, that happens to all of us. Now, I do want to ask you one thing about your playing, and we both got to play for Coach Foster. Just how your team related to him.
Oh,
because Jack was probably old when you had him. He seemed old.
He did seem old.
He did. He seemed older than he was.
Well, he was very old.
Yeah, I know.
But just the tremendous amount of respect for Jack Klosterman. People didn't goof off around Jack. He treated everybody equally. I don't know that he had any favorites. One thing I liked about Jack was his ability to go through the high school and recruit kids that maybe had no intention of playing football. And he would find some kids that had size, maybe somebody that had speed, and he would convince them to come out. And he just had a knack for doing that. That's just something that I really respected about Jack Klosterman. No favorites, either performed or
you didn't get performing. Somebody else took your spot.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. Well, Mike, we promised Bob that we wouldn't eat into his evening too much. He was nice enough to make the trip into town to do this at your place, but I wanted to give you a chance, before I pause the video and allow him to not have to take part in our discussions about high school baseball and golf. Give you a chance.
I've got all my high school golf notes now.
Yeah. So I
had a pretty good battery mate in high school, Glenn Brummer.
Oh yeah, he played with Glenn Brummer in high school.
Yeah, I might have heard of him. Yeah, I might have heard of him.
And I played a little college ball together.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were a shortstop, weren't you?
I was.
And pitched.
I pitched also.
Oh,
okay, so you and John Tom Arnold on the same staff?
John, this was amazing. John was a sophomore when I was a senior, and I just always felt like he really should have been pitching more than he did as a sophomore, because he was like, 6'1", still had some developing to do, but left-handed pitcher, and he threw well, had a good curveball. And the rest is history. We know how good John Tom was.
So dominant.
His brother Roger was my idol, though.
Yeah.
Remember Roger?
Yeah. 68.
68. Yeah. Best athlete I've ever seen out at that high school. You've probably never heard of him. His name's Roger Arnold.
They were the team that went to state and got beat by Galesburg first game of the state tournament.
Yep. Yeah, I guess I didn't. So you're telling me that you played college baseball then?
I did. I
Where
played
at?
at Millikan University one year, and then I went on to Lakeland, played there with Glenn.
Gotcha.
Kind of
Gotcha.
funny. I pitched against Lakeland when I was a freshman at Millikan, beat them. And then I pitched for Lakeland against Millikan as a sophomore and beat Millikan.
Wow.
Well, see, there's a nugget. I had no idea. I had no idea.
Because your Hall of Fame picture at the high school is a baseball picture.
Basketball.
Is it basketball? I thought it was a baseball picture.
We don't need, it's on that first wall too. Have you noticed that?
The shorts were short back then.
But you know-
Yeah, they're hiding you.
Well, the first wall is where all the old guys are.
Yeah. It happens. So what as a basketball player, what kind of, I mean, you played what?
I was a guard, and I did start 10 games as a freshman in high school. Our team wasn't very good. I had 22 points in one game as a freshman against Litchfield.
Okay.
But I was more of an assist guy than I was a scorer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I took as much pride in giving somebody a layup as shooting a 2-pointer, because there were no 3-pointers.
You'd
Sure.
have been a 3-point specialist back in the day.
Could have been. Could have been.
Well, even
So
that's
my seventh grade coach was Jim Webb, and I always kid him. You know Jim.
I know,
Webb.
Jim.
I told Jim, I said, Jim, you taught me how to shoot a basketball, but you never taught me how to play defense. And he goes, defense, they come to watch him throw the ball in the hoop. So
Yeah. I didn't know you had Jim Webb as a coach.
he was my 7th grade basketball coach. Yes.
Then you had Maxton in
Yeah.
high school. So you had Jim in high
At
school.
Glen Temple in grade school.
Glenn Temple.
well, I mean, those are when people think of, classic Effingham high school coaches, those are the two, right? I mean, Jim Maxton and Jack Klosterman. I mean,
Yep.
that's
My dad always told me that Jim Maxton kept his job because he was such a good freshman football coach. Because after he went to state, he had a couple lean years on the basketball.
He was good.
Oh,
Coach Maxson was a good football coach.
where we played the seniors was where you were as a freshman for the most part. Most kids were in the same position.
Right. Right.
Yeah. He kind of knew where to put you, and I'm sure he had a little guidance from Coach Klosterman on that.
Well, Coach Caution wasn't there. I'm sure that Coach Maxson would have liked to do that.
Oh, I'm sure he would have.
even like being a 3-sport athlete and, being, pretty darn good at all 3 of them, as you must have been, college baseball player and a starter on the varsity team for most of your high school career. I mean, that's not something you see a lot anymore, because people specialize a little bit more these days. Like, kids just don't play all of those sports. They kind of, I don't know if they have to or if they decide to, but they sort of pick something kind of early
Sometimes
on.
they get bad advice.
And it is a little hard going from one sport to the next sport to the next. When football condition is not near what basketball.
No.
condition is. And it would take me 3-4 weeks to get in any kind of basketball condition.
You're not ready.
From one night, go from Friday night to a Saturday morning practice. So,
Yeah. Yep.
but I was never great at anything, just decent at some things.
Well,
And that's the truth.
it kind of sounds like you're being modest, but
No. Michael
No, he's never modest.
probably blushing right now.
No, I mean, see, those are my first memories as a little kid. Is Bob and Mike Tegler and Bob Duvall going and watching them play when Dad, I can remember some of those high school games. I was probably 7 years old.
I still have cassette recordings of your
Of my dad.
Yeah. My dad would, if he couldn't make a game or whatever, he would record it at home.
Oh yeah,
On
I
the
have.
radio.
Yeah, I've got a DVD or a CD. It's actually on an MP3 player, I guess, of Dad's one of his last games he did before he retired. Now he came back and did a couple games, but it was, the St. Anthony Dietrich game on the radio went overtime in a regional. It was a hell of a game, and it's just priceless to hear. Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Well,
I'd do it again. It was so much fun. I'd go through it again. It's that much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mike, you got anything else? We probably ought to let Bob get on
Give
with.
Bob a chance. So, yeah, I may have to help him up the stairs, since he had to come
I
downstairs.
can, when the time comes, I'll pause this and we can say.
Then we
goodbye.
can go on to
There's no
golf.
there's no banister.
You know,
I know. Well, we had to take it off. We got some additional furniture we had to get down and I haven't had time to put it back up yet. I use the walls, I gotta, trust me. I've fallen a couple times on the last couple stairs there. Yeah.
That sounds pretty believable.
It is.
yeah. Well, Bob, I appreciate you taking the time.
it's my pleasure. I've had a good time. Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Hey, thanks for being on. And we'll probably get some new listeners from the nursing home after this.
One of my biggest fans.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he just,
Moser will listen to this now. When he hears that you have been on here,
Oh,
you know,
oh, no.
he will listen.
Doug
He's
Moser,
just-
one of our first guests, one of
He
our,
was like our second guest.
yeah, I
He's
think
just,
so.
he's just one of those elite athletes from Newton. Talk
Yeah.
to any of them, they'll tell you that.
I'll tell you what, I remember him in high school. There was never a jump shot he didn't like either. He was not afraid to shoot the basketball, and he was a good shooter.
I'm sure he was.
No, he was good.
Well,
All right, thank you, guys.
that's Bob Walls. We appreciate him taking the
Thank you,
time.
Mike.
I'm going to,
Thank you, Robert.
I'm going to shut her down for a second, let you guys.
Pause a second, and then we'll.
We'll continue. All right, we're back. And thanks again to Bob Walls for making the trip over to join the show. We're
Yeah, Bobby did a great job.
yeah, he did. He did. And he stuck around even a little bit longer than we promised him. So
and I didn't get to ask him. He always teased me. He said his junior year, his mom never had to wash his uniform.
of course, as
But
soon
then
as-
he said he got sacked maybe once or twice his junior year. So,
yeah.
Yeah, he always said his line was so good, he never had to wash his uniform.
So we kind of covered the Effingham game. I don't know that there's a lot more that I need to say about it. It was
I would mention, shout out to Armando Estrada, 3 field goals in a game. That's
3
a
field
record
goals in
now.
a game. Yeah, and 4 in a season ties a record. So
Probably what, Mike DePoister?
Michael Carey also.
Michael Carey? Okay.
Yeah, he did that in 2014. So that's you got it. Armando, I talk a lot about what he does, but his kicking is a very important part of what this team does. The kickoffs are very important. I got a 5-year-old that decided to walk in here, and he is going to leave now because he's making too much noise. Derek, please go now. Okay, thank you.
It would,
He just
do you think Armando can kick at the next level?
I mean, I don't know why.
I mean, for what he's doing in high school, he's got a lot of touchbacks. He's got a lot of legs. So
I don't know why I would say no to that. I mean, yeah,
he
can,
would,
he-
different type of training, everything different. I would think they could, lengthen him out even more.
he's not a, he's not a bad defensive back either.
Well, he's an athlete.
Yeah, he's Mount Zion presented some challenges to he and Jack Harper that they had not faced prior to that game. But I think Mount Zion probably presents those issues to a lot of
Sure they do.
secondaries. So I'm not trying to call those guys out. I'm just saying that they got tested in a way this week that they probably haven't been tested.
Nor will they probably again.
Because even Muhammad, Muhammad threw it around a little bit, but not like Mount Zion did. Mount Zion had 4 guys that you had to keep tabs on, and they were lined up at receiver spots most of the time. Like they just, that's what they did. So, it was just a tough back and forth game. It was a hell of a lot of fun to call. I tell you that much. I mean, I wish Effingham was fun, but we were
We
enjoying
were
it.
babysitting for some neighbors. My wife had told me that I was helping her. And so then I had to go to a Catholic Charities event since I'm on the board there. So
Mhm.
I was listening to you on my phone as much as I could when I got over there, especially the last half of the 4th quarter.
Yep. Where there
Yes,
were
yeah, I was keeping tabs on you. You and Mr. Sapp were getting excited sometimes. I
There
think
were-
early in the game, you were excited about a no call on a horse collar. I
Well,
remember.
because it was a bunch of shit, okay?
I heard it was a blatant horse collar, and yeah,
Uh,
you guys both got a little excited.
yeah, but you know, the fourth quarter just there were three lead changes in the fourth quarter, and one right before the end of the fourth quarter, right before the beginning of the fourth quarter, right at the end of the third quarter. So just good back and forth action. It was a lot of fun. I
Good.
wish it had gone differently. Effingham really could have used that win, but you know, what more can you ask for? Exciting.
Those are the cards you're dealt. Now you got to play the hand, and let's see what happens.
Yep.
All right, let's do
Yep, trip to-
NTC real
trip-
quick.
Yeah, trip to Lincoln this week.
Yeah.
Got to have it. NTC, yeah, we'll go through that real quick because for the most part, it's pretty much what you expected in the first
Win
round.
according to Hoyle.
Yeah, most of the there was one that didn't, but it was the middle seed games between South Central and North Clay. And
Yeah,
North Clay
that
got to
was-
win over South Central. North Clay is 15-10-1 on the fall, which first of all, playing 26 games in the fall is pretty aggressive. But you got to keep in mind, most of those kids didn't play
Right.
much at all last year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Fleener, and then it's not Griffey. Who's the Bose?
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's about it. You know, they had
Yeah.
So listen, former guest of the show, John Freck. I think you might know what he's doing, is kind of what I'm getting at. And also, I think they just have a good culture there, a good baseball culture where kids come in
Yes.
knowing how to play.
Yep.
Other than that, St. Anthony was your top seed. They won their opening round NTC tournament game over CHBC, 16-0 in 3 innings. And not to, listen, the 3 innings is the big thing for them because it
Don't
gives
have to throw many innings with the pitcher.
yeah, it gives you a lot of options for pitching the rest of the way. So that's good for them. Like you might say, well, they could have taken some people out. Well, first of all, I don't really subscribe that in a tournament anyway, but especially when finishing quickly is such an advantage.
Finishing quickly and saving pitch count on people.
Absolutely. You had your 2 seed Altamonte no hit Neoga for the second time this fall.
Wow.
10-0. And then in the 3-6 game, you had Windsor Stew Straws beat Diederich 12-2. So St. Anthony and North Clay
North Clay.
They will play tomorrow, Wednesday, in Effingham. And Altamont and Windsor Stew Straws will play in Altamont, and that could be a pretty darn good game.
Should be. They both could be pretty good.
They both could. St. Anthony got a win. I saw St. Anthony play North Clay earlier in the year, and St. Anthony, kind of pulled away in that one as I recall. But listen, North Clay is obviously game, so they're going to give you what you want. And then championship and third place game, those are Saturday instead of Friday this year. So that's nice. That means I'll actually be able to go because I won't be broadcasting the football game. So
There you go.
I don't know that I'll be broadcasting those games, but I will get to go watch them anyway. So there you go. So that's baseball. And now you got golf to talk about, and then we
A lot
will
of
wrap it
golf.
up.
A lot of good things. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ladies first and talk about the girls. And first thing I want to do, I want to give a shout out to Jerry Trigg and the Effingham girls team.
Yes.
First trip to state as a team. Now they've had individuals go. Bain girl, Alex Bremer, Morgan Wilson.
Morgan, never heard of her.
Yeah, Katie Klosterman. I'm trying to think those 4. And shame on me if I've missed somebody. But I know those 4 had gone to state 1 or 2 times. Katie may have gone 3, but I know she went 2 for sure. So there's been individuals, but for the team to get out, that's awesome. And the way it all shook out, they finished third at the Charleston Regional, okay, which was won by Matt Toon.
Mm-hmm.
Then finished third in the Lincoln sectional, beating Matt Toon by 10 shots to go to state. So that's, high school golf. And another, here, for Effingham, their scores at Charleston, and I'll probably butcher some names because my notes were written so fast here. Mariah Kirk shot a 90, Ellen Eberge a 93, Anna Herzl 95, Marissa Ali 100, Elena Nieberge a 102, Ella Tooman a 112. And you think, okay, there's their pecking order, 1 through 6. But to get out of the sectional, Kirk again was medalist for them with an 87. Ella Tooman shoots a 93. Elena Nieberge shoots a 97. Your 2 and 3 scores were 5 and 6 the first time. And then Marissa Ali a 99, Anna Herzl a 104, Ellen Nieberge a 104. A flip-flop of roles, and that's going to be a theme I'm going to discuss here in a minute. So that's awesome, Jerry. They get to go to state. They play Friday at Red Tail in Decatur. They now have the cut system in place. So as a team, I think the top 8 of the 12 teams there will come back Saturday, and the top 20 individuals not on those teams. So I don't like the fact that kids go to state and they're losing a chance to play 2 rounds. However, they've had some issues with time. You know, it is what it is. I'd hate for kids not to get the opportunity to play. That's the biggest thing. I wish they would not do that, but they do. So now individually, the regional Charleston medalist was Addie Krause, who's at St. Anthony. So she went on to the sectional, as well as Madison Brummer. Addie shot 77. Got a private coach, some Tim Krause guy kind of helps her. I don't know. But good job for her. They're really good. And then T-Town got 2 girls out, Holly Bushu and Elena Hardick. And Elena Hardick, it was unique. They had a 3-way playoff for 1 spot. Her and her teammate, Abby Wortman, and then a girl from another school. So you got 3 of you playing for 1 spot, sudden death. And I talked to Elena, and she said she was so nervous she couldn't hardly hold the club. And she ended up winning the playoff, moving on to the sectional. That's where their season ended. Now at the Lincoln sectional, I told you what FEM scores were. Addie Krause, I think, finished second or tied for second with an 81.
81,
so she'll be going to state representing St. Anthony. So, that's good. That's exciting. They're going to Red Tail. I remember going up there as a golf dad, and the first year I was going to be the only dad on the course in shorts, and I was. And Whitey, it was cold. It was probably about 35 degrees when they teed off. I had work boots with about maybe 2.5 pair of socks. And I had a lot of layers. I had gloves, stocking cap, but I was sporting the shorts. And I got a lot of looks. People either thinking that guy's brave or stupid. But second day, there was more people in shorts.
I always
And
tell
it was a little warmer.
I always tell people he escapes from the top of your body anyway.
Yeah, it escaped everywhere that day. My dad had found the store because he knows where everything is because of all those basketball games. People couldn't find hand warmers. Walmart sold out. Well, he goes, well, on the way up, he goes, I know where this gun shop is in Mount Zion, hunting store. He goes in there and he brings us hand warmers. So you had the little hand warmers in your gloves, and Morgan had them with her, which was the important. We made sure she had some. But yeah, 2 trips up there, and good luck to all those girls.
Yeah.
Again, excited. Effingham, first time as a team. That's awesome. And I'd like to see Miss Krause bring back a medal.
Yeah, Jerry's a nice guy, and I like to see that for him and for the kids, obviously. But
now here's the one thing. It'll be interesting. Coaches don't get golf carts at state.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Jerry's getting close to having some work done on his back. And I don't think Jerry can walk 100 yards. So I'm hoping
can't they make
there is some intelligence, and he is allowed a cart as a coach.
Yeah, that's not something he can help.
Because it's not a luxury, it's a need.
Yeah.
And Jerry's put a lot of time in. You know, he also does softball. He puts a lot of time in those programs, and I'm glad he's been up there with individuals, but finally up there with the team. That's awesome. Now on the boys' side,
Yes.
Whitey, we played Wednesday at Robinson.
Yes.
Won by the St. Anthony Bulldogs. 3 teams go. A 370. Robinson shot a 370 and we shot Robinson shot a 369. We shot 370, missing by 1 shot. 1 shot from going to sectional as a team for the second time in school history. And, you know, my kids, oh, coach, on 17, you watched me miss that 18-inch putt. Well, every one of my 4 kids who were accounting score can tell you 5 shots they gave away because we played our worst 18-hole match as a team. Even my 2 guys that weren't counters can probably tell you 8 to 10 shots they had. So very painful. 1 shot, people, oh, don't worry about it's only 1 shot. No, that was the difference in us as a team playing in the sectional yesterday than just my 2 individuals. So that part of it was tough. Congratulations to St. Anthony. They won going away. Joey Trupiano was their medalist with a 75. Michael Martelli a 77. Preston Phillips a 79. Lane Ludwig an 80. Cohen Pennington an 83. Jonathan Willenberg an 88. Jonathan Willenberg's worst round in high school, counting all 4 years. You know, I know Jonathan. I had his dad and his mom both when I taught. Awesome, but I hated to see it. And then I talked to him before the sectional, and you know, I told you we had that theme. So individuals that got out, Avery Yarhouse got out from Altamont with an 86. Grant Fulton from Newton got out with an 89. And then I had Cole Onosorge get out with an 88, and Ethan Taylor with an 91. Ethan's my number 1 player, and we sweated it out for about an hour and a half because you're watching the app, and he's here, and these kids got holes to play, and then they just keep going down, and the field comes to you, and oh, we might be in a playoff, you know. Oh, now we're in. So he got in. I think he finished 9th or 8th and got in of the top 10 who got to go. So that was good. Also in 2A, Colby Hayes from Effingham got out of the Charleston Regional, shot an 87 at that one. A great kid. I mean, Coach Schaefer does a good job with those guys. Windsor Stew had a golfer. Rylan Rinker got out up at Monticello. So that's good. Give them a shout out. So then the sectional was yesterday. We play here at FEM Country Club. Obviously, of course, my kids know that's our home course after Labor Day. And Cole Onosorge really struggled for me. I think he really was nervous from the beginning. He kind of battled through it on the first hole and just had some holes he struggled and never got a rhythm going. And just the opposite, Ethan Taylor was playing great. I was like, oh, you're finally playing around. And then he ran into some troubles in about 5 holes in a row. Ethan shot an 84, missed the cut by 2 shots. Avery Yarhouse from Altamont. Avery got in a 5-way playoff for 3 spots. So we followed the playoff, him and a young man from Mount Carmel who we got to play 9 holes with in a practice round over the weekend. And they were both in the playoff. They both got out. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to Avery. Good young man, good player, works hard for Coach Strang over at Altamont. So he gets to go to state. St. Anthony shoots a 307 on their home course. And then from Robinson, it's almost like the rotation got turned upside down because now their top 2 players were Colin Pennington and John Willenberg with 75, who both were non-counters at Robinson. This is just their depth.
Yep.
Lane Ludwig, 76. Preston Phillips shot an 81, and then Joey Trupiano and Michael Martelli both shot 86s. Joey and Michael were the 1-2 golfers in the regional. Now they're the 5-6. So You know, it's amazing how the script gets flipped, but when you have the depth they have and they're all capable, I mean, that just shows you their depth. And they've got 3 or 4 kids, you know, on standby who can shoot the same numbers or better. It really, they're just loaded, a loaded high school team. But
Yeah, we talked about that earlier this
oh
fall.
my
about
goodness.
How it's the big, some of the biggest challenges they face are figuring
Right.
out who's going to get to compete.
And of the quote 4 winners of the sectional, I know they beat at least 3 of them in one other tournament because they go to Prairie Vista in Bloomington. St. Teresa hosted a tournament up there the very beginning, first week of the season. And I know IC Catholic's good, and I know Byron's good, and St. Anthony won that tournament, beat both of them at that tournament. So they're considered the favorite, but you can't, golf's golf. You don't know. Going to be cold Friday morning.
Yeah.
So first day on the state tournament, gonna be a little chilly.
Well, chilly usually means windy too, a lot of times, you know.
And Prairie Vista, you up there in Bloomington, that wind comes in there. So you just don't know what's gonna happen there. But you know, I like my chances, just this group, you know. Wayne Ludwig shot 76. I was talking, his grandpa was showing me he had 38 putts. Half of his strokes were putts. He goes, you think he would like to make a couple putts? You know, just one of those days, ball wouldn't go in the, you know, ball wouldn't go in the hole, Lane shoots 76. Most kids' ball doesn't go in the hole like that, they shoot 90.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, good luck to those guys going up there to state. I'll be surprised they don't bring home hardware. Last year they didn't. Probably a little better team this year. A couple of the guys are a year older, and they've all experienced it now. You had a couple kids who hadn't been through it, and that's the thing. That first time through the ringer, it's a different ballgame. You struggle a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I can imagine.
I wouldn't be shocked if we don't get some hardware or some all-state awards for finishing top 10 from some of our young men or women.
Sounds like, I mean, just a lot of opportunities for it to
Yeah,
happen.
and you would not believe how many people were at the country club watching this sectional. I mean, you had 12 teams, or yeah, you had 12 teams. You had 40 individuals, and I think all of them had 1 or 2 parents and 1 or 2 grandparents there. It was crazy. There was people everywhere.
Anyone get bonked?
I'm sure, but I didn't see. I saw a kid's golf bag get smoked. I couldn't believe these kids were standing so close to where this kid was hitting on they were on 11's tee and he was hitting into 13, and okay, he's already hit it over by where you're at. So he's a little erratic, and they finally moved at least away from their bags, and this kid ripped one off their back, bang, back out, crossed into his own fairway. Yeah, and as usual, you had issues with, I watched 3 kids tee off from the wrong tee box. We had to get rules involved in that. I wasn't even on the rules committee, but you just, you know, you can't, you know, if that kid breaks a rule, doesn't get penalized, and takes your kid's spot going to state, you're not going to be able to sleep with yourself. And it's just, come on. Your tees we're playing is blue. It says it on everyone got the rule sheet, blue. Your coach told you blue. Blue is down here. Black was way up in the middle of the hill. And yeah. And there was other kid teed off outside of the tee markers, got on the side, got confused. There was a kid who got Dairy Queened for signing a wrong scorecard, and it was going to be drama because it was maybe going to decide what team got out of state, got to go to state, what team didn't get to go. So there was drama involved, and you know, I was just sitting back watching it.
I'd rather not be in the middle of a thing like that, I think.
A coach since I wasn't on the rules committee, I handed off the threesome hitting from the wrong tee to Coach Job from Robinson. He was on the rules committee, and I said, hey, Tag, you're it. I'm not dealing with this one anymore, because one of their coaches was kind of not happy and
that just
being loud and just really wasn't thinking, because he was trying to blame everyone but the 3 kids for hitting on the wrong tee. And I wanted to say, hey, I wanted to hold those markers. This is a black. This is a blue.
Yeah, that just seems like if you play I don't know if you play golf very many times.
Exactly. If you're here if you're here in a sectional, you should have a little bit of a clue, unless you're the sixth man on a team who's just there filling out the roster.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
Tons of fun.
I will echo your wishes for good luck for all those people.
Yes.
We have been going for a while, so we don't, we probably just don't have enough time to even talk about how many home runs Albert Pujols has now or anything like that.
Did he hit another one tonight?
No, and they took him out of the game. That one's still going on, but he got lifted midway through. So
All
they
right,
just
well,
tied. So
oh, they're tied now?
yeah, it's 7-7. So it's been sounds like it's been kind of a crazy game with the Cardinals and Pirates. No, I got
Okay.
my eyes on got my eyes on the Braves game in the corner of my
Yeah.
eye.
If the Braves win tonight, will you pour champagne on your wife's head?
No, but there's a couple Leinenkugels in the fridge. I might
Okay,
go
well,
having.
hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
They're not going to get any help from the Nationals. The Nationals already lost to the Mets once today, and they're down 7-0 in the third inning. So
Okay.
the Braves are going to have
Do it yourself.
They're 4 outs away. So
All right.
we will see how that goes.
Send me a picture of the bottle of Leinenkugel when you.
Well, only cans. I'm not that
That's all right.
not
Bottle
that high class
Leinenkugel.
around here.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
All right. So anyway, yeah, we'll be doing this again, next week. At least talk about Effingham's football game again with Lincoln. It's must win. So it's
Yep.
going to merit some conversation. There'll be golf to talk about. They'll have played their state tournament by then. There'll be an NTC baseball tournament champion to talk about. So
Yep.
then fall sports kind of
Yep.
winding down.
Then we
now.
got volleyball still going on, cross country and tennis still wrapping up, but it's soccer, so we're getting close.
Yeah, it's fall sports kind of just they don't take where they just it seems like they start and then they're done. They just kind of
Well, now that golf season's over, Christmas tournament season is about to start in
Yep.
earnest.
I'm sure you guys will be having plenty of meetings.
Yeah, it's coming.
Plenty
It'll
of
probably
productive-
be as
productive
early as
meetings.
next week. Oh, they're usually somewhat productive.
Productive for a while, and then I
Yeah,
gotta imagine they devolve into BSing after a while.
we've heard the same stories from a few individuals, maybe 10 times now.
Yeah, well, I'm guilty of that as much as anybody. All right, we'll call.
Sounds
it a
good,
night.
Whitey.
All right, take it easy. We'll talk to you.
All right, see you.